Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are One Mountain, Many Paths, where our mission is what Barbara Marx Hubbard and Dr. Mark Goffney call the planetary awakening in love through a unique self-symphony. Together, we declare that the last day of the old face of evolution is honored as the first day of the new face of creation. I am Christina Tehel, the co-executive producer, along with Krista Josefa, Jamie Long, and Jacqueline Clark, and we are so delighted to be with each and every one of you today. We welcome you to week 249 of our live broadcast. Use the chat functions to say hello, to let us know where you're from, and to resonate the Dharma. On Zoom, check that your chat settings say all panelists and attendees and not just all panelists, so everyone can see what you're writing. In One Mountain, Many Paths, we are connected, we are whole, and we are expressions of the entire process of creation. We are activating a new humanity and we are awakening as a new species. Homo Amor, the fulfillment of Homo sapiens. We weave together the knowledge and wisdom from religion, spirituality, and science to articulate a global ethos for a global civilization. Welcome home, everyone. We are strengthening an evolutionary we space. For instance, dance with us at the fabulous upcoming Summer Festival of Love, which we will hear more about at the end of today's broadcast from Claire Molinar. Also, the opportunities are endless. You can study in Holy of Holies. You can study one of the Dharmic courses with a group. Our next group begins in September. You can read the books and fully step into this revolutionary field of language. If you haven't been listening to A Return to Eros, the radical experience of being fully alive by Dr. Mark Goffney and Dr. Christina Kincaid, which is now on Audible, read brilliantly by actor, producer, and director Gabriel Anwar. Do listen. I was listening again for about the dozenth time this past week, and I find it radically inspiring and helps me recognize in my daily life how love's energy literally drives reality. Like our Facebook page at facebook.com/One Mountain Many Paths and be inspired by great clips and member activities there. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at One Mountain Many Paths and share our clips with your communities. We are streaming live on YouTube and on Facebook right now. And if you are on one of those platforms listening, do feel free to come and join us on Zoom. If you are on Zoom, copy either of the links from the Zoom chat box and share on your favorite social media channels. With that, I give you a little bit of what to expect today. We begin with the Dharma recap from last week. Afterwards, Dr. Mark sets our intention. Then David resonates the evolutionary love code. We move into prayer and then evolutionary sermons today from Dr. Mark Goffney, often also from Barbara Marx Hubbard. And then Krista invites us to commit our outrageous acts of love, to contribute our gifts to this revolution, to step into membership, leadership, and to play our unique instruments in this unique self-symphony. Mark wrote what he calls evolutionary love codes. Mark and Barbara studied the codes together, often comparing them to Barbara's own 52 codes for conscious self-evolution. These codes grow out of their radical commitment over 100 collective years, crystallizing the new story of humanity. Quote, evolving the course of consciousness and culture, which is the source code of love, unquote. Know that each communion here, each broadcast is a standalone, and every week's communion does build on the week before. One Mountain, Many Paths is radically committed to telling the new universe story. Now, for our Dharma recap from last week. Synergistic democracy is the next step in the evolution of democracy, which is the evolution of love. We've hit a structural impasse in all democracies. The structures of win-lose democracy through voting, great as it was for its time, cannot coordinate us toward a planetary sense of connectivity, wholeness, oneness, and liberate the creativity of all unique selves. Last week, we laid out 6 issues with democracy. 1, many issues we vote on today are hyperobjects. Hyperobjects, whether it's a gain of function research, core economic policy, healthcare, and how healthcare should function, are so complex, it's virtually impossible to intelligently vote. 2, key issues are not being voted on. These begin in entrepreneurial win-lose metrics driven by quarterly profits. For instance, the nature of artificial intelligence that replaces jobs, pushing automation, not understanding the implications for humanity. 3, issues are not international any longer, not local, or issues are international, sorry, not local. They require global coordination, but you can't globally coordinate through local democracies that are fighting with each other. 4, the nature of voting itself has integrity issues. For instance, technologies have the capacity to undermine the structures of democracy and are deployed around the world to undermine democracy directly. For instance, split testing and campaigns that Facebook exploits. 5, the structure of democracy itself is win-lose. We create radical polarization, which destroys the basic movement of evolution, which is synergy. We have a polarized space in which voting is an act of war. 6, you can only get to synergistic democracy if we have a shared grammar of evolving value, a shared understanding of the good, the true, and the beautiful, a shared understanding of what it means to be a human being, not dogmatic, not that eliminates diversity, not totalitarian, but where we hold paradox, where we hold polarity, where we don't divide and pick up one value and say, this is my value and your value's wrong. From all over the world, we're here together, which is utterly essential to the evolution of culture, which is here a place in which the evolution of love and the evolution of consciousness takes place. We stand at the edge of society, pouring into its center. We need structures of voting in which we vote in new ways, which were informed, which require responsibility in order to exercise the right. When we have good information, we inhabit each other's values, inhabit each other's perspectives. We synergize at a higher level of consciousness. As a model for synergistic democracy, Dr. Mark Offney and Barbara Marx Hubbard enacted the Wheel of Co-Creation 2.0 based on the universe, a love story, the amorous cosmos, and the unique impulse of evolutionary love that lives in us as citizens, as unique selves. We need all the unique selves within every democracy, within a shared story of evolving value that's intrinsic to reality. We bring this vision of democracy into the world, which is synergistic democracy, which is the evolution of love, which is the evolution of democracy. With that, I invite us to more deeply enter into the holy and sacred space of one mountain, many paths, and I turn my word to you, beloved Dr. Mark Goffney.
I want to set our intention for today, friends. And I want to just, take a minute or two to tell you a little bit about this day. One of the things we try and do in One Mountain is to integrate the best of pre-modern, modern, and postmodern, the best of traditional wisdom, the best of modern wisdom, the best of postmodern wisdom. And all three of those thought forms, all three of those heart forms, all three of those worldviews live in the world today. And the polarization that we experience in the world today that's blocking global coherence is rooted in each group of people in the billions inhabiting one of those worldviews and rejecting the other worldviews. And often people at the apex of the pyramids of power are holding distorted versions of one of those worldviews, shadow versions of one of those worldviews, right? So for example, when planes entered into the airspace of Manhattan, which had been hijacked, and flew into the World Trade Center, killing in a moment thousands of people, it was a meeting between the shadow of pre-modern religion, shadows in this case of pre-modern Islam, that met people who were all individually completely innocent. But the World Trade Center also represented, for this shadow version of pre-modernity, the shadow of modernity, right? The shadow of all of the ravages of a kind of contemporary expression of systems of government that also were seeking power and were seeking control and were seeking domination, and that also exploited, right, in multiple ways. So it was this meeting between a projection onto the World Trade Center as being the aberrant phallus of Western society, dissociated from value, attacked by, right, the shadow of pre-modern thinking, the shadow of traditionalism, a kind of Dar el-Harb, Dar el-Islam, the Nation of Islam, right, is against, right, through the sword, all those who are outside of it. And that terrible clash exploded, and on that morning, in September 11th, right, in 2001. But those clashes are happening every place. And in order to synergize, we have to actually inhabit each other's values. So one of the things that we're doing here in One Mountain is when a particular holiday comes up, whether it's Ramadan in Islam, or whether it's Easter or Christmas, or whether it's a Jewish holiday, we actually try and find something of its essence and speak into it and feel into it. So today, does anyone know? I'll take a look in the chat box, right? I am right now about 17 hours into a 24-hour eating and drinking fast, right? And this fast is called Tisha B'Av, and the 9th day of Av. And it's the day in which the temple in Jerusalem was destroyed, both the first temple and the second temple, right? Solomon's temple and the temple built by or initiated by Jeremiah and Darius. And not only the temple, but an entire host of tragic events, right, in the history of the Hebrews, right, takes place on this day. And at the same time, right, on this day, on this exact same day, right, the mystics say, the lineage says, all liberation is born, all transformation is born. In the language of the lineage, B'Tisha B'Av Nolad HaMashiach, the Messiah, as it were, right? A vision of a different world, Homo Amor, the fourth Big Bang, right? The transformation of reality to its next level of consciousness takes place on this day. So both are happening, right? Both are happening. And on this day, right, there's a particular theme that runs through. And it runs through all fast days in different forms. It has a particular form which is, how do I forgive the destroyer? And should I forgive the destroyer? What does forgiveness mean? The temple is in Jerusalem. For those of you who've been with us, right, and those of you who are new, welcome. Huge welcome to everyone who's new. I know there's always a couple of dozen new people every week, according to our analytics. So if you're one of those new people, mad, deep, huge welcome to you. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, 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 welcome. And one of the things that we've talked about here is that the temple, right, represents temple consciousness. And temple consciousness is about the Ark, right? The Ark of the Covenant. Remember Indiana Jones, right, in the United States and around the world, right? The movie Raiders of the Lost Ark. The Ark is the Ark of the Covenant. Above the Ark of the Covenant are two cherubs, right, perched on the top of the Ark. And the cherubs are locked in erotic embrace. And the voice of the divine speaks from between the erotically intertwisted cherubs. So the temple represents Eros, right? Not simply sexual Eros. The sexual models the erotic, right? The temple represents the invitation to live erotically in every dimension of life. The book Return to Eros that Christina Amelin just talked about, right, is about the 12 faces of Eros, from interiority to longing, to fullness of presence, to the interconnectivity of the all with the all, to perception, right, to the radical identity between giving and receiving, to time which stands still, right? There's 12 faces of Eros, to pleasure. So we live in Eros. We realize that reality is driven by Eros, that the Eros of reality lives in us. The destruction of the temple is the disconnection, the alienation, the rupture from Eros. So on the day in which we re-experience the destruction of the temple, we re-experience the rupture from Eros. And one of the primary ruptures from Eros is our incapacity to forgive. But how do we forgive? And what does forgiveness mean? And do we forgive someone who didn't ask for forgiveness? And does forgiveness mean letting go of accountability? And that's a very painful topic. But the inability to forgive, whatever that means, and we're going to talk about what that means today, blocks love, blocks Eros, right? The hose of Eros, the flow of Eros is crimped and cramped and contracted, right? And ultimately suffocated, right? By the inability to forgive. So we're going to talk about that today. And it's good to talk about it when we feel weak. I feel personally very, very weak now. I don't fast well. And when I haven't, drunk anything for 18 hours, right, kind of my energy gets kind of very low. So my energy is low and I'm a little bit faint, but that's the best place to talk about forgiveness from. Let me share with you perhaps one other text from the lineage, right, that we're feeling today. And the reason we go into the lineages is because we want to actually link together pre-modern, modern, and postmodern. We want to take the best of the traditions. We want to actually be informed by them. We want to be informed by the sacred text. We want to be shaped by the rituals. We want to leave behind the shadows of pre-modernity, just like we want to leave behind the shadows of modernity and post-modernity. But we have to inhabit the value of the traditional, the modern, and the postmodern, inhabit all three of those values, feel the values, then synergize those values beyond polarization. Polarization is when I live in the traditional, Or I live in the modern, right? I live in the modern, right? And I call the modern science, and I don't look at the shadows of science. And I think that science has every possible answer. It's a mistake. I live in postmodernity, which is the deconstruction of all value. Everything's just a story, right? There's some important insights of postmodernity, but to live in it by itself is a tragic mistake. Or I live in my tradition or in traditionalism, but I actually ignore with the insights of modernity and postmodernity. We have to inhabit all three, which is why here in One Church, right? One church, one mountain, many paths, which we called One Church for a while, in one mountain, many paths, in which we're actually standing between dystopia and utopia. We're moving from polarization to synergy. We stand between this moment and we actually realize and feel the chasm of dystopia rising to meet us. We face the potential extinction of all of humanity, or not the death of humanity, but the death of our humanity, right? In one mountain, right? It's our job to actually engage the synergy. So we'll be here and we'll talk about from a perspective of science, deep scientific structures. We'll talk from a perspective of postmodernism, or we'll talk from a perspective of deep within the great traditions. So right now we're going to be for a moment deep within the great traditions, right today. We're going to talk about forgiveness. And just to get it for one last second, I want to just share with you one lineage text where the text says that on the day of a person's wedding, and since today we're in a Hebrew lineage, I'm going to cite from the Hebrew lineage, right? On the day of a person's wedding, that day for them is called Yom Kippur. And Yom Kippur is the second major fast day in the Hebrew lineage. One is the 9th of Av, the second is Yom Kippur. And Yom Kippur also is focused in a different way on forgiveness. And so the mystics say, the reason the day of your wedding is a day of forgiveness, because if there's one person you still hate in the world, then you can't be a mad lover. And on the day of your wedding, you've got to be a mad lover. And friends, today is the day of our wedding. Kol ha'olam hilula damya, right? Every moment in the world is hilula, is a wedding. It's a time of heros gamos, of coming together, of merging the great divine masculine, divine feminine that live in us, the yin and the yang, the upper waters and the lower waters. This is a wedding today, friends. And we want to be mad lovers. We want to be outrageous lovers because we understand. I wrote to my friend Zach this morning, right? We live in a world, someone once said, of outrageous pain. The only response is outrageous love. We live in a world of outrageous beauty. The only response is outrageous love. And I'm sad more than usual on this day of the 9th of Av. And I remember that I want to be an outrageous lover. And I realized that to be an outrageous lover, I have to forgive. And I want to share with you what that means. And there's been a particular person, really a group of people who have been on my mind for quite some years, some of them a couple of decades, but one particular person for about 5 years. Right. And I'm going to use this person whose name I'm not going to mention, I'm not going to allude to, right, who wronged me in an egregious way, right, motivated, beneath the surface by this person's own egoic contraction and tragic smallness. And it's not a question of actually competing perspective. The person did something that was heinous and wrong. And I've found a difficult time. I've had a difficult time forgiving this person. And then this person is now sick. And so I've been reaching, right? I've been reaching inside over the last few weeks to find a way to forgive this person, to write them. And I haven't been able to. And I realized I couldn't share this with you unless I could. And so I spent the last night and the last few hours just finding my way until really right before we came together, right, in One Mountain, I was able to write this person a note, right, and send them love and wish them healing. So I want to invite everyone to find, and we did this, we met, right? The inner team that is holding One Mountain, we met right before this broadcast. And we asked everyone, and I want to ask everyone who's with us, find a person, right? Find a person that's unbearable to you, right? That you haven't been able to forgive, right? And it might be someone in your particular life, and it might be someone who you know about, right, who did something that you can't forgive. And we're going to work our way to forgiveness, and we're going to try and understand what forgiveness means. What does forgiveness mean that unlocks eros, that unlocks the outrageous lover? Not a blind forgiveness, not a cheap grace, not a kind of you're forgiven, not a forgive and forget, right? None of that is actually, none of that works in the body. And if you've experienced egregious pain and egregious insult to your personhood or to yourself, to your children, to your life, to your work, you can't just say, I forgive you. So what does forgiveness mean? How can we get there? Okay. And I'm going to turn to David, who's going to read the code for today, which is a code of forgiveness. And it's a code that my partner, KK, someone gave her this quote that's ascribed to Mark Twain, but it's actually much earlier, right? When she was at the beginning of her process of forgiveness. In this case, it was a forgiveness for sexual abuse, right? Early in her life. So that's our code for today. So I'm going to turn to David, right, to read our code. And let's blow this away. Mad energy. We're going to do this with joy, right? Full eros, full joy, right? The full eros and joy of forgiveness. But we're going to try and find our way as erotic mystics for the sake of the evolution of love. And with this in mind, we're going to return, myself and Barbara Marx Hubbard, right, next week, right, to the conversation of synergy, of synergistic democracy, of taking the next step, and what is the next step in democracy, and how do we actually synergize, and how do we bring together separate parts into larger wholes, right, with full joy and eros. But right now, right, there's a crimp in the hose, and we're going to release it, we're going to liberate it, and we're going to find our way. And I hope in, right, a half hour, 45 minutes from now, we're going to know something and feel something for the sake of all that is. We're engaged now, not just with ourselves, not just with the few hundred of us that come together live and, you know, in the replay, right, in our inner community. But we need to mystically, erotically shift this in the world, come to a new understanding of what it means to be radical knights, heroes of forgiveness that is real. Right, so we're going to dance that dance today together. David, brother, give us the code.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mark. What a deep topic. And I'm feeling into my own heart, looking in my history for those times when I've been wronged. And friends, let's do that together so we can uncrimp this hose, as Dr. Mark is saying. So I'm going to resonate the code, and it's a very concise code, and it's a very beautiful poetic code. So let's listen to this code and feel it in our hearts here. Forgiveness is the fragrance the violet sheds on the heel that has crushed it. Forgiveness is the fragrance the violet sheds on the heel that has crushed it. So as we feel into this resonance, friends, and feel into our own desire to reweave forgiveness in our lives and in the cosmos, I turn this word back to you, beloved Dr. Mark.
Right? Now you get from that there's not a rational process going on here. It's not a small self-forgiving. There's some larger play here, right? The violet is crushed, and yet the violet leaves its fragrance, right? There's something happening. There's something larger. Forgiveness is the fragrance the violet sheds on the heel that has crushed it. What could that possibly mean? And then that's what we need to release amor. And amor is the outrageous love, not ordinary love. Ordinary love can't forgive. Ordinary love is a strategy, right, of ego, right? Ordinary love, right, does a calculus. Outrageous love can forgive, and we don't yet know what that means, but we're beginning to get just the very beginning of the fragrance of it. Forgiveness is the fragrance that the violet sheds on the heel that has crushed it. And that's what releases amor. So take us into amor. Christina Tahel, take us in. Where are we going? Who's doing amor, right? Amor is outrageous love, the love that animates reality itself from subatomic particles all the way up, right, into our hearts right now in this moment. Take us inside. Here we go.
Amor, 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 amor,
right? The outrageous love that lives in us and moves us in every second. And what we're going to do, friends, is we're going to do it a little bit differently this week than we usually do. We're going to do the holy and the broken hallelujah, right? Our prayer at the end. So we're going to first go into forgiveness now. We're going to step all the way in, right? And see if we can actually find our way. And then we're going to complete with amor. So who's ready? Are we ready to find our way? Are we ready here, friends? Are we ready? Are we alive? Are we awake? Can we do this together? Are we ready to be erotic mystics for the sake of the whole, standing between utopia and dystopia to actually find our way into what forgiveness can mean? And I want to welcome all the new people. I want to welcome everyone who's new. So everyone, right, as we're completely ready here, just share a name. Share your name. You know, if you're new, if you're old, right, and we're old in our newness and we're new in our oldness, right, just share us your name, right, just so we can say hi, right? Any new names, right? If you're new this week and you've never been here before, just share with us and we want to welcome you. And if you're a little embarrassed to share your name, we're going to welcome you anyways from wherever your house is, wherever you are in the world. So welcome, 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 welcome. You just go to the chat box, which Christina pointed to in the beginning, and you just get welcomed. And if you can't quite find your way to writing your name, we'll welcome you anyways. Okay, and right to all panelists and attendees. So wherever you are, welcome. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for joining us. Welcome, Bonnie. Yes, and Bonnie, right to all panelists and attendees. Welcome, Margie. Right, welcome everyone. Right, welcome home. Right, it's so good to be here together. And we're going to do a very deep reflection and a practice. And then we're going to go to Leonard Cohen, the Holy and Unbroken Hallelujah. And Leonard's been with us every week since he passed. Right, and he chants with us. Right, and the Holy and the Broken Hallelujah is a form of prayer. And we end with prayer and understanding what prayer means. Right? Just like we have to up level, right? We have to integrate the pre-modern, modern, and postmodern. And we have to up level. We've got to up level prayer. Prayer is not turning to God as a cosmic vending machine. And forgiveness is not a blind or simple, I forgive you, right? You wronged me, you massacred my family, but I forgive you. No. That's not right. That violates something in us. Justice is real. Accountability is real. So what does forgiveness mean? So I want to start in a strange way, okay? If I can, friends, I want to try and start in a strange way and try and kind of meditate our way into this, okay? Is everyone okay? Here we go. So I just had an exchange with a dear friend of mine. I don't have permission to use his name. And we were thinking about, so I won't mention it now, but he's becoming a dear friend. We've known each other for maybe 15, 20 years. He's been a major teacher on the world scene. And we found each other in the last, I would say 5 or 6 years, kind of, I would say in a new way. And we were talking about things we wanted to talk about in the public space. And he shared with me, right, conversations he's been happening with the group of people in the world who call themselves doomers. Right, doomers, and doomers means, right, those people who believe in some profound sense that actually we're already in the extinction, right? That actually, in some deep sense, the seventh mass extinction has already started, right? We're not aware. Doomers, D-O-O-M-E-R-S, doomers, as in doomsday, right? Doomers, right? And that actually turning away from the knowing that actually we're going to fall into dystopia, right, is an avoidance, an avoid dance is the way I say it. It's a dance around the void, and that we actually need just to find each other and know that it's going to go down and love each other compassionately and be unflinching. So one is, I think that's wrong, right? I think that's a mistake, right? I think the energy of evolution actually lives in us and is alive in us. And the same energy of innovation and creativity that moved evolution at the moment of the Big Bang literally lives in us now. And the capacity for new synergies and the capacity for new emergence and the capacity to write a new source code. But it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be a quick donation and I've got it done. If we don't put our lives on the line, if we don't stop business as usual, we will actually, right, meet the seventh mass extinction. The death of humanity and minimally the death of our humanity. We've got to put everything on the line, but I think we can. And I think we have the capacity, if we actually make a decision to go all the way in this lifetime, to change the course of history and to actually move from dystopia to utopia. Having said that, and so I'm in that radically optimistic, radically positive mode if we all put it on the line. And I have to say that most people don't put it on the line. Even people who participate, even right, they write a check, they put a little time in, right? But basically they go about business as usual, hoping that it's going to somehow work out. That's not what it means to put it on the line. To put it on the line is to actually stake my life on this and go all the way, to be a revolutionary. But that's a different conversation, right? I don't want to have that conversation now. I want to talk about, right, this notion of what if it all blew up? Right? I want to go to that place that we never go. We're always painting the vision of how do we actually get to Homo Amor? How does the fulfillment of Homo sapien become Homo Amor? But I want to stay for a second in that position of the doomer, of the doomsday possibility, right? What if life on planet Earth would become extinct, or humanity as we know it, the death of our humanity would take place, right? Does that crush in some fundamental way our trust in the eros of the cosmos? And the answer is that it doesn't at all. And I want to begin to get this, because it's only in getting this we can find our way into forgiveness. Okay? This is going to be a way into forgiveness. I've got to hold a wider frame. Okay? So the death of humanity is not actually a bigger problem than the death of an individual human being, which happens with radical injustice and completely unfairly. So I want to get that together. Did everyone get that sentence? This is a huge sentence. Okay? The death of humanity, right? And this is a huge breakthrough understanding, right? The death of humanity is not a bigger problem than the horrific, unfair, and unjust death of any human being. All right, so let's just hold this. Let's just hold this. Let's just hold this for a second. It's a very big deal to get that. Now, is death a tragedy? Right? Now, and it's deep. Death is a tragedy. Right? And any kind of position that says death, we have to look and understand that death is a tragedy and that death is a liberation. But first, let's hold the tragic dimension of death, because we can't stand for life. We can't, therefore you shall choose life. We can't choose life unless we actually struggle, and we should struggle mightily against death, right? And I applaud Google in its efforts for the extension of life and its efforts to challenge death. But ultimately, death will live with us, right, in some way. Death is part of the cycle of reality. Now, when death is not just, when we're talking about 800,000 people butchered by machetes in Rwanda in 100 days, when we're talking about, right, the majority of my family gassed in the death chambers of the Holocaust, right, when we're talking about massacres in the Congo, 5 million people brutally killed because the Western world is extracting the mineral coltan, which is needed for silicon and Silicon Valley. 5 million people, right, killed because of the brutality that is the trickle-down effect, right, of this planetary stack, right? There's what do we do with all that death? What do we do, right, with, right, everyone understands the question, right? What do we do with that? Right, wow. And it's impossible to actually trust the eros of the cosmos. And we're completely in the forgiveness conversation, right? We're actually completely, right? We're beginning the forgiveness conversation from, right, a radical left angle. We're entering the forgiveness conversation. It's impossible to have this conversation about death without having a wider lens than this world. Does everyone get that? One of the ways that we actually know that reality lives beyond this world, one of the ways we know the truth of the continuity of consciousness, is because there lives in us the desperate need for justice. But it's not a contrived need. It's not a postmodern social construction of reality. It's not a figment of our imagination, right? It's not a mere fiction, right? But actually the affirmation of the integrity of fairness, right? The affirmation of justice as a principle of cosmos, the affirmation of the good, the true, and the beautiful, right? That actually when I sit and have dinner with you, I'm not going to murder you. And there's a difference between the two. And when I violate the integrity of your person and I cause you suffering, I'm violating some intrinsic principle of cosmos. And that's not in any sense, shape, or form okay, and can't be easily forgiven within the construct of a lifetime through some magical mechanism that allows it to be released. No, that's not true. And the same way, it's not true about death, right? Like you can't live in this world unless you understand, right, that beyond this world, there's a continuity of consciousness. Otherwise, you can't believe in love, and you can't believe in eros, and you can't enjoy even a moment of reality unless you're a radical narcissist. And your radical narcissism is, well, none of the suffering's happened to me. I'm okay. So forget about everyone else, right? All the 100 million people that were brutally murdered, non-combatants in the 20th century, forget about them. My life's okay. And then when something happens in your life that actually shatters, right? You feel something's unfair, you go into a depression. You're lost in a mad depression because why are you having some suffering in your life? You were fine with the rest of humanity, right? So that's narcissism. So if you want to live in joy in the world, right, you have to be a narcissist, a radical narcissist, unless you understand that there's a larger play beyond, right, the narrow confines of this dimension. There are multiple dimensions of reality. And death itself is a night between 2 days. And we're not radical materialists, right, who actually understand or suggest that this world is an accidental bleep or blip in vast emptiness in which we've made up notions of integrity and goodness and justice and fairness and love and truth and goodness and beauty and loyalty, right? No, those actually are reflections of a larger eros of cosmos. And so the eros of cosmos tells us it's not over in this lifetime, because there's no possibility, right, in this lifetime to complete. We don't complete in a lifetime. We don't complete our unique gift. But for now, I want to focus on the fact that we don't complete justice, right? And we know so much now about injustice. We know more now about injustice than anyone ever did in the history. Only God 100 years ago knew and had seen the level and amount of images of horrific injustice that we've seen at this moment in the 21st century, right? And does that mean we don't give up joy? We actually have this knowing that we're part of a larger field. And that knowing lives in us, not theologically. Stay close with me. It's not a faith construct, right? It's not a made up belief. We actually know in our bodies that love is real. And we know that justice is real. And we know that fairness is real. And in order to know that, we have to know that there's a larger play, that there's a continuity of consciousness, that there's a larger karma, that there's a larger dharma to reality, that there's a larger journey, and that this life that we live in is a stage, it's a dimension, it's one expression, it's a moment. We got to take this moment radically seriously. We take this moment radically seriously. And we understand full on, with full power, that there's a wider lens and a wider view. And when I step into that wider view, right, I feel the perfection of all that is, even right now in this moment, right? And so I can't think about death without knowing that. No way. It's not possible. And I know that even though there's death, and I know that even though there's been enormous suffering, and I know that even though my family, right, died, most of it gasping for death in gas chambers, I know that the world is good and true and beautiful. And that there's a larger play, and there's a larger field of eros. And I trust, but not in a way of faith, believing that which I don't know. I know full carnal knowledge, full eros personified in my body, right? That every single one of those people who died, right, unfairly and unjustly, right, actually transmuted, right, moves to the next stage, that somehow the balance of goodness was restored and life went on and deepened and exploded to its next level, and nothing was lost, right? And all scales were made right, and all accountabilities, right, took place, and everyone and everything counted, and everything matters. And therefore, I can find you in this moment, and you can find me in this moment, and we can know that what we do this week as revolutionaries and as evolutionaries here in One Mountain, Many Paths matters. And it's not frivolous, and it's not extra, and it's not a vain gesture, right? No effort is lost in the great economy of cosmos. No love is lost in the great economy of cosmos. No goodness is lost in the great economy of cosmos. There's no anonymous act in the great economy of cosmos. And the economy of cosmos is justice, and the economy of cosmos is love, and nothing's ever lost, and nothing's ever extra, right? Wow, right? Wow. And from that place, I can begin to find forgiveness. Right? You see, from the small self of this world, there's no possible way I can forgive. Does everyone get that? It's just too painful. It just doesn't work, right? It's just too much. It's just too outrageous, right? And if it's only the small self of this world, then I feel that if I forgive someone who's done something heinous, then I'm actually taking the side of injustice, right? That's a big deal. But if I widen the lens, right? If I widen the lens and I feel into the larger cosmos that we live, and the larger cosmos we live is a wild cosmos. It's extraterrestrial and it's extra dimensional, right? It's extra galactic. There are galaxies upon galaxies, right? And life, right, springs up and appears in so many forms and in so many shapes, right? And in so many traditions and in so many disguises. And I understand, I know it as an absolute knowledge, then I begin to understand our code from today. And let's look at the code, and maybe someone can put it in the chat box. Forgiveness is the fragrance that the violet sheds on the heel that has crushed it. Do you understand that you can only begin to get that? You can only begin to understand that if you widen the lens. There's a different conversation that begins to take place. I can hold the paradox. I understand that unfairness doesn't work itself out in this world, but I understand that in the larger play, there's some way in which I can find you, right? Even though you were my oppressor. And once I have this larger frame, then I can begin to go inside. And then I can kind of feel into, who are you that moved to hurt me? And I can begin to know your story. I was sitting with someone that we call Cousin Kenny 2 weeks ago with my beloved friends and actually the co-chairs of the Center for Integral Wisdom, Gabriel Anwar and Sharif Malnik. And Cousin Kenny was there with us. And every Friday night we do a festive meal together, right? Welcoming, right? Eros and Sabbath and delight. And Cousin Kenny is a lawyer, right, on death row. And he was sharing the story of someone who had committed particularly heinous crimes. And I had asked everyone at the table to talk about the light that comes from the darkness. We say not as greater is light than darkness, which is a verse in Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verse 7. Not greater is light than darkness, but greater is light that comes from the darkness. And Kenny described as how he got to know this particular client of his on death row. And as the client began sharing his story, right, how the client got, right, to death row, right? I'm going to call the client Jack, how Jack got to death row. And you began to hear the oppression and the degradation and the pain that Jack suffered. And you began to feel Jack, right? Forgiveness began to well up in the heart. Not forgiveness in that Jack's not accountable, not forgiveness that there shouldn't be law, but forgiveness in the sense that all of a sudden, Jack is not the monster we thought him to be, and that Jack actually could be kind, and Jack could be good, and Jack could have truth in him, and Jack could have beauty in him, and that Jack needs to be held accountable if in fact that's the case. But that accountability doesn't include demonization. That actually I can feel Jack. And so I began to feel, and I'm going to give you just a personal example, and I'm not going to mention anyone's name. I began to feel into what motivated, right, this particular person that I talked about to behave in a way to me that was heinous. And I thought about his feeling of not being recognized and his desperation that I could always feel when I talked to him, right, to be able to have a voice. And I felt how my place in what I was doing in the world, right, made him always feel like his voice wasn't heard, right, and he couldn't find his place, and how he came to an understanding deep in his heart, which he couldn't express, that only if he participated somehow in murdering me would he have a voice. That's painful. But his desperation for a voice, and I felt the desperation, I followed him back, right, to his early childhood at 6 months and a year and 2 years and 3 years. And I felt the desperation growing in him. And I followed it all the way to the place, right, in which he committed an act which should be unforgivable, right? But I could feel him, and I could feel his pain, and I could feel his desperation. And he wasn't right. He was absolutely wrong. And his wrong had cascading effects and affected many, many people throughout the world. And he bears karmic responsibility for that. And he'll have to work out that responsibility. And reality holds him in some sense accountable, and in a real way. But I can let it go. I can forgive him, and I can send him a love note, right? Wishing his goodness and wishing his healing and wishing his wholeness. And I can sign it love, and I can feel the love in my heart, right? And I can forgive, right? We can forgive each other. We can forgive each other. And I invite, right, everyone to find that place. You invite me and I invite you. We can find that place where we can actually begin to hear each other's stories so deeply, and to feel each other's humanity so deeply, and to taste each other's desperation so deeply, right, that there's a way in which we can forgive each other. Okay, now find this with me. Like, you got to find it in yourself. The way I was able to find it, I'm going to go one step further, okay? The way I was able to find the desperation of this person who used to be a friend of mine, right, who hurt me in a heinous way, the way I could find it was by searching in myself. You can only find it in yourself. You got to find it by what in me, right? Even though there's not a bone in my body, and I thank Goddess I wasn't constructed that way. There's not a bone in my body that would do what he did. But I can find in myself the root of that pathology. I can find in myself the root of that desperation, the root of desperately wanting to share and not being able to share, right, in a way, right, that's needed, right? Knowing that there's water that I want to share, right, for a world that's thirsty, right? And there's all sorts of obstacles, right? And I'm sometimes forced to watch people die of thirst, knowing that I can't share that water, and I feel that desperation. And I feel the unique self-gifts rising in me that are ungiven. And I've got to feel that in myself. And only when I find it in myself, when I find the root of it living in myself, can I then find him who acted it out in a way that was heinous, but I can forgive it. I'll tell you a story, right? I'll tell you a story of the son of my original lineage master, right? Mordechai Leiner of Izbeka. So his son used to receive people on Sunday mornings, they say, right, who came for a fixing, right, of some great violation that they did. Okay? So feel this with me, right? And a particular man comes to him, right, to ask for a fixing, right? And this master has given a fixing to everyone, to every murderer and to every thief and to every abuser, right? And to every to every manner of violation. He's been able to go inside and find the root of that in his heart. And from that place, give forgiveness and offer a tikkun and offer a fixing, right? right? Wow. Right? And you can offer a fixing when you can kind of find in yourself and say, if I was constructed differently by Goddess, what might I have done? But this Sunday morning, this man comes and he shares with them the story of his violation. And the master says, I can't offer you a fixing now, right? I can't offer you a fixing because I can't, right? I can't find it in myself. Come back in a week. And the man is devastated. He goes white, and the altar Hasidim, right? The disciples they can't imagine it. How could this be? And so the master secludes himself all week, right? And it comes the next Sabbath and he dances with his disciples as he's wont to do. And they're ecstatic, right? They're ecstatic, right? Wow, right? And they're dancing and dancing. And then this smile breaks out on his face. And he says, right at the very end, he says, bring that man who came last Sunday. I want to meet with him privately. And he meets with him privately and he gives him a tikkun, he gives him a fixing. And the man shines with radiance and he feels the forgiveness and he goes to live into that new life, right? After receiving that forgiveness and that tikkun, that fixing. And the man goes away and the Hasidim gather around the master and they say, "Was tutzach?" He says, what happened? Right? What were you able to find? What did this man do that was so heinous that you couldn't find it in yourself? And he says, the man told me that 4 weeks ago, his wife died, but he couldn't let her go. So he continued sleeping with her, having sex with her for several days after she died, before he told people she had passed and they buried her. And he said, I couldn't find it in myself. I didn't know what to do with it. I couldn't find it. Right? Not that it's such an egregious sin. It's definitely a violation, but I just couldn't find it. So I couldn't forgive it. So the Hasidim asked him, so what happened? How did you find it now? And he said, because I noticed that as we were dancing in ecstasy, I danced for an extra minute or two after the ecstasy was gone. I danced for an extra minute or two after the ecstasy was gone. Wow. So he was able to find the root of it in himself. Right? And from that place, was able to madly forgive. Can you find that with me, friends? Right? Forgiveness means I can feel your humanity so deeply. It's not that I'm letting you off the hook. I can't do that. Right? Reality will hold you accountable in some way, and you have to actually come and ask for forgiveness. And when you ask for forgiveness, then there's a full forgiveness. Then all bets are off. Then everything is let go. Then all accountabilities are undone. But if you don't ask for forgiveness, right, then reality holds you in some way accountable, but I can release you. And I can release you because I can feel your humanity, and I can release you because I want to be an outrageous lover. And I want to actually be filled with eros, and I want to stand between utopia and dystopia, and I want to be a revolutionary together with you, and I want to evolve the source code, and I want to live the fullness of our joy, and I want to choose joy with you again and again and again. And it's from that joy that we're going to be creative. And it's from that joy that we're going to innovate in interior technologies. And it's from that joy that we're going to actually articulate an evolving set of first principles and first values that are going to form the ground of a new collective intelligence. But to do any of that, right, to synergize, right, we've got to step into the wheel. And the wheel of co-creation, 1.0 and 2.0, that we're going to talk about next week, and we're going to talk about at the festival, right? The synergistic democracy, the wheel is the wheel of forgiveness. We step into the wheel and we realize, right, it's not a line. It's not me and you. It doesn't separate between us. I live in you and you live in me. And if I can find your pain and I can feel your pathos, then I can feel the root of your violation that lives in me, even if I didn't act it out in this lifetime. And from that place, I can love you madly. And I can love you madly. You hurt me, yes. You hurt everybody around me, yes. And I know where it came from, and it wasn't okay, but I can love you madly. And I'm free at last, God Almighty, free at last, right? That's what it means to forgive. It means to get free, right? To be born again into freedom. to let go, right? To release. Oh my God. Oh my God, right? Oh my God. So friends, I want to invite everyone. We're going to go so deep into this, right? Again and again and again in the next weeks, but particularly we have this incredible festival coming up, which is our Dharma Lab. And you're going to hear about it from Claire. And if someone can put into the chat box the link. And I want to invite everyone to come. Even if you can't be there for all 5 days, or you're going to miss a half a day, you can listen to that, right, to the replay. Let's find it. Let's put it in the chat box, right? And let's put it 5 times in the chat box so people can find it and see it, right? It's for 5-6 days. It's 5 days actually, right? For about 3 hours a day, we're going to be doing deep study. There's a whole other schedule. Come for as much as you can, but we're going to go inside and we're going to be revolutionaries, right? Healing the source code. And this is when we get together, right? Once a year. This is our deep dive. So I want to ask you just to love yourself madly, right? And sign up, right? And be with us. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God, right? Wow. So let's do like this. We're not gonna do the Holy and Broken Hallelujah, right? Which is the usual hymn that we do, right? What we're gonna do is something else. And then we're gonna turn to Claire and we're gonna turn to Krista. We're gonna do something else. Let's just find each other in the chat box. And I want to just ask everyone, anyone, find someone that needs your forgiveness and just write, right? I love you, I forgive you, with their name. I love you, I forgive you, I am free, with their name. Find that person. I love you, I forgive you, I am free. Okay? I love you, I forgive you, I am free. See if you can find all 3. I love you, I forgive you, I am free, right? I love you, I can feel it. I forgive you, I am free, right? Right, and let's do it as erotic mystics for everyone. Let's do it for the sake of evolving the source code itself, right? I love you, I forgive you, I am free, right? I love you, I forgive you, right? I am free, right? Can you find that, right? And we're doing it, right? It's not cheap grace, right? It's not easy, right? We do it because we can feel our common humanity, not as a justification, but we inhabit each other. We live in each other, right? We're intimate. That's the shared identity of intimacy where I can find in my soul root, that in you which exploded into violation. And here's the wild thing. If you can't do it yet, I'm going to give you one last principle. Those who forgive are forgiven. Keshem shedan danimoto. In the precise way that I forgive, will I be forgiven. And oh my God, who among us doesn't need forgiveness from someone, right? So I love you, I forgive you, I am free. I love you, I forgive you, I am free. And if you're ready, right? If you're ready, we're going to go one more step, okay? One more step. Is everyone ready to go one more step? Who's with us? Okay, one more step for the sake of the evolution of love. Last step. Are you with us? Can you hold it? Can we hold it, friends? Right, 2 more minutes, one more step. Can you hold it? Simona, right, Claire, right. Alora, right, welcome. Can we hold it? One more step. We need this. We got to move the whole thing, okay? Right, every one of us has someone that we have to ask forgiveness from. And maybe they're not alive anymore. Maybe they're not alive anymore. Maybe we can't find them. Maybe the political structure of the situation is that in asking them forgiveness, they wouldn't hold it the way it needs to be held. And maybe it's too dangerous, okay? So I want to ask us if we can go one last step, okay? Ask forgiveness, right, from the person that you need to ask forgiveness from, okay? Right, so here we go. Right, and I'm thinking of someone, right, that I knew when I was, oh my God, 17, 18, right? Unless someone create any great story in their heart, there's a person, I think the extent of our contact is I hugged them once, maybe for a second. So it's a story of the heart, but I stepped away from them in a way that was abrupt and I couldn't be there for them, right? Her name was Michal. So I said to Michal, right, forgive me, right? I've actually looked for you online for a decade, right? Just because I wasn't able to say goodbye, the way I needed to, right? And I couldn't find you, right? So forgive me, right? Ask forgiveness, friends. Ask forgiveness, right? With all your heart. And when you ask forgiveness, then actually you're forgiven, even if you can't find the person, right? Ask forgiveness. We have to forgive each other, right? The only way to move from polarization to synergy, right, is to forgive each other, right? All the way, deeply, like we never have before, right? To release it for real, to let go for real, to forgive, right? And to be forgiven, right? Because I couldn't be there the way I wanted to be. And I would do anything to do it differently today, but I can't. And with all my heart and soul, right, on my knees in devotion, right, forgive me, right? Wow. Oh my God. Yeah. We got it. So let's just create the transition space, and we're going to turn to Claire and to Krista to close us, right? And we can feel the amor. We can feel the love, right, flowing through. And let's just chant from wherever we are, just for a moment, as we go into Claire and Krista, okay? Right, amor. Right, amor. Amor, 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 amor. Amor, 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 amor. Amor, 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 amor. Amor, 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 amor. Amor, amor, amor. Amor, 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 amor. Amor, 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 amor. Amor, 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 amor. Amor, 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 amor. Amor, amor, amor. And now we can feel our code. Forgiveness is the fragrance the violet sheds on the heel that has crushed it. Claire, invite us to the festival. Take us inside. And then to Krista, who will close us however it pleases her heart. Claire Molinaire.
Thank you, Dr. Mark. I'm so moved. Friends, it's that time again. I'm going to keep inviting you to the festival and nudging you to join us. It's in 2 weeks. This week we have we opened the community space online, and the field is starting to grow. Everyone is starting to write their introductions, setting their intentions. So there's a beautiful field that's starting, and we're starting to feel our global community. It's coming alive. And if you have not jumped in yet, if you're still on the fence, maybe you're asking yourself, what's in it for me? What you're not sure. I would like to invite you to look at this from a different angle. And instead of asking yourself, what's in it really for me? Ask yourself, what do you want to bring to the festival? What would you like to bring to the festival? Because this festival is your festival. And if you've been here for some time, you know that your unique self, your unique heart's desire really makes a difference, and that it has power. So when you come to the festival with your full being, with your full energy, with your heart's desire, you're actually participating in the evolution of love. And this is what we're doing here. So we want you, and this is why we keep inviting you every day, every time here. We need you. We want you at the festival. We need all of us. We are a unique self symphony. So please join us. we'll have 3 hours of Dharma Lab with Dr. Mark, workshops, chanting, dancing. We are going to kick this wide open, and it's, if you haven't tasted the festival, give yourself a favor, join us. I'll see you there. And Krista, I'll hand it over to you, my love.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you, Mark, for sharing this wonderful, wonderful journey with us. And let's feel for a moment that we are together, a band of outrageous lovers, evolutionary, erotic mystics, and how we love actually evolves the very source code of love itself. And we are invited to step in deeper and deeper. And Claire shared beautiful about the festival. This is our yearly space where we meet for 5 long days, but there's also an invitation to become a member of One Mountain, Many Paths. And that is a beautiful way to really resource our home and say yes to this Dharma, so each and every person in this world can drink in from this fragrance of the violet, as the code said it so beautifully. So I want to invite you to take a look at our website, which is onemountainmanypaths.org. And if you click on membership right here, you can read all about what it means to become a member. If you scroll all the way down, you will find all the 9 courses that you get access to. Most of these courses are actually recorded live at the Outrageous Love Festival. So that means 8 days of live teaching on each of these topics. Awakening Your Unique Self is here. Becoming a Future Human is here, which is actually a course that Barbara Marx Hubbard and Dr. Mark Gaffney recorded together. So as a member of One Mountain, you get access to all of these courses. And you can choose your own contribution. As you can see here, I strongly recommend to give at least $100 a month. That's what most people do. And that also enables us to really take the next step together in this revolution. And Mark said it in the beginning so greatly, that we are invited to step in totally and to stake our lives on this. So please give as much as you can so we can really make this world more beautiful, more true, and more good. So now I want to invite all of us, bring us on the screen and turn your camera on, because this is the moment where we actually get to feel each other, taste each other as this band of outrageous lover, and see all of our beautiful, beautifully unique faces. And as we are bringing people on and your cameras will pop on the screen, I want to invite you to put your screen on gallery view. You can do that on the top right corner so we can all see each other's faces. And then right now we put on some beautiful music. Hey brother, hey sister, and let's really lift up all this energy, all the Dharma, all the forgiveness, all the healing for the world, and bring it into our bodies and move our bodies and dance as a prayer to really make this happen together. Thank you so much. Christina, please turn on the music.
Hey brother, there's an endless road to rediscover.